Hey, boys and girls, it's Nancy A. Shenker, the geezerproofer, here with another episode to inspire you to be a beezer, somebody who be in the moment, be relevant, be active, as opposed to a geezer who is just somebody who is stuck. And that could happen at any age. Before we get started, I just want to do a little subtle shout out to Jill Kirsch, who's a color stylist. And she actually gave me this scarf because she said that these are my colors. So Jill, if you're watching, what do you think? And if you're listening, switch over to the Vimeo or the YouTube. So anyway, I'd like to begin with a little story. When I was in high school, when my parents would go out of town, my house was the party house. And I took great delight in arranging a gathering of friends and randos to come to my house to listen to music, to dance, to make out, to do whatever else we did back in the 70s. And then when I grew up and took a corporate job, I was responsible for all of Citibank's grand openings. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of pressure, a lot of fun. Similarly, did same type of work at MasterCard, handling big events for board members, for guests. And then being a true glutton for punishment in the event space, I took a job as chief marketing officer of what at the time was the world's largest trade show company. So most of my adult life has entailed getting gatherings of people together for a common purpose. Or as I said earlier, sometimes it's just randos who end up in the room and end up making friends for life. So with that as a lead-in, my guest today is Diana Place, who clearly has more energy or masochism than I do because she is producing her own gathering in May of this year, and you'll hear more about that later. So, Diana, you use the word effervescence a lot, especially as it relates to gatherings. So what is the power of gatherings and what is effervescence?
So I've always been, like you, at the center of either creating or loving being in a gathering. And so it was only recently that I discovered the term collective effervescence. It was actually coined by a French sociologist. And most of us know it when we feel it. It's usually, it's at the Super Bowl or a sporting event. It could even be a peewee baseball game. It's at a concert. It's at a wedding. It's at a spot where people are dancing in unison. It is actually scientifically proven to be a physiological response. It's sort of this energized electricity that forms between people when they're moving in unison, thinking in unison, and gathering together. So it's sort of a magically cool thing, and we know it, and we love it. Yeah. So kind of like a rave, or although a rave's a great example, but it could also be a protest. It could also be, for me, it was, the last concert I went to, just the whole idea of being with other people that are just, celebrating life.
Well, for some people, that's a living hell. But for those of us who feed off of that collective effervescence, which I always have. When you were an organizer of effervescinating experiences, see, I've now turned that into an adjective.
Love it. I love it.
Were you the party planner? Were you the attendee? Did it kind of depend on your mood?
Great question. I think you're right. It depends on who you are. It tends to be more extroverted people that dig this kind of stuff. However, you can witness it and still get a turn on. And also, I have to say, other examples don't have to be these massive events. Other examples are things, sort of born out of our love of walking in unison. Pilgrimages, the Camino de Santiago being probably one of the more visible things that everybody's getting turned on to. It's this unity of alignment. So it doesn't have to be the rave goers or the concert goers. It can be anybody who ends up feeling it. as a connection of sorts.
Well, it's interesting you say that because this past Sunday, I took myself out for a gluten-free bagel, and there were three 80-something-year-old women sitting and talking. And of course, I'm a perpetual eavesdropper. So I was listening in on the conversation. And then before I left, I stopped by and said, I just have to tell you how much I loved your women's conversation. So it was only a group of four of us, with me included, but there was just this feeling of commonality because we were all from New York. So sometimes it's those micro moments that aren't planned, that just kind of happen, where groups
we are
convene.
all energy. And whenever we come together and feel, as you say, this like-mindedness or this connection, it can happen, and you feel it in goosebumps. Your heart starts to beat a little faster, maybe, especially at a rave. But it's a fascinating concept. There's a recent book by Decker Keltner called Awe: the New Science of Everyday Wonder and How It Transforms Your Life. And actually, collective effervescence is one of the 8 pillars of Awe, and the science is really new to understand the physical and emotional impact that these kinds of moments. And
if you're not a gatherer, there still are so many other things that you could do that are collective experiences. You could be an observer. You know, I have no problem. I mean, sometimes it's a little creepy if somebody wants to just stand and watch while a party or an event is going on. You could be a planner. You could be a behind the scenes person, especially in the trade show industry where I came from. There were people in our ops department whose major job, and I was always in awe of them, was making it all happen and turning these big open spaces into experiences. And
well, think about the creativity of that and the envisioning. So you say the planner who doesn't even go, that envisioning, you can actually feel it as well, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, when I watch the Super Bowl, I'm always thinking, who decided that this person was going to fly down half naked on a string, and who was ultimately responsible for building and designing that string? So there are all these people behind the scenes that make effervescent experiences really come to life. So, you know, the roadies, as it were. So why do you think that gatherings become especially important they're always important, but as we age, I've noticed that so many people are starting to kind of create these Woodstockian experiences for older people. Why do you think that is?
Well, my belief is that, like you said, we've all benefited and enjoyed some version of these gatherings as we've grown older, both socially and some other kind of cooperation, organizing, aligning around a craft we love. Let's get a group of quilters together. So we've all sort of enjoyed that synergy and energy when we come together. But I believe as we get older, and believe me, you know, I'm 64 now. I wish to hell when I was in my 30s, there was more gathering and sharing of information and stories of women around things like menopause or sex or all those kinds of things.
Well, ironically, it's the internet and digital media that has made these gatherings easier for women who may be at home with their kids or work full time, that it's much easier today to build communities than it was when we were having our kids. It was a very lonely place to be.
Well, and in particular, as we get to be older, and if we had a family, we empty nest, the parents of our kids' friends, we're not the same. We don't feel alike or in like mindset or like values or like interests. We were only brought together by kids. Same thing with work colleagues. You know, we may spend 20 hours a day with someone, but really when we step away from that, we realize that they weren't really our close friends. So even if we have a full friend group, I believe, and I'm discovering even more that there's a craving to connect with people who share not only your philosophy of life, but your excitement about life as you get older. It's, yeah, I want to hear how you're parenting or how you're caregiving for your parents. Yeah, I want to hear what's different with your 20, 30, or 40 something kid. But more importantly, on a personal level, it's this craving to say, man, let's talk about this stuff, and not feel sort of limited by the conversations that you may even have with some of your best friends.
I know I was having a conversation with a young mother yesterday at Industrious, and she mentioned that she'd just gone back to work. She has a 4-month-old at home. My daughter's going back to work soon. And I said, it's okay to admit that you love your job as much as you love your baby. There's no shame in that. And I think it was important for her to hear, because she may not have a cohort of friends who are at that exact same stage. And Jessica Wiederhorn, the co-founder of SOS, was on my podcast recently, and we talked about the importance of stage and not age, because, for example, the example you gave, when you're dealing with sick or dying parents, you want to hear from other people who are in a similar situation.
You have to hear from other people. You must need.
So that's where the collective intelligence, the collective wisdom, the collective sense of humor, perspective, all come into play. And as we get older, as I often say, even though I have the trademark on the Silver Hair Playbook, there is no playbook, especially for women of our generation who raised kids, who had big jobs, whose parents started aging. Like, what the fuck do I do now? Like, the books are just starting to get written. The columns are starting to get written. People are starting to speak out about things like menopause and ED, which was my juicy episode this week. So tune into that one. That was a goodie, talking about our private parts and making our private parts public, and talking among ourselves about what happens as, things start to dry up, ache, pain, not function the way they used to, because it is a common experience of aging. And there are solutions for a lot of this stuff. And out of speaking about the problems, not in a way that you're like moaning and groaning about the trials and tribulations of aging, but talking about it in real terms, which is why I started this podcast, is to tackle all those things that maybe other people were whispering about or avoiding, and just bringing it out there in a fun and frank way. So
I think that's really important. But I also, one of the things that I find that I love to see is this other kind of electricity between women who are, you seek stories and understanding of how you're handling this, that, or the other that's challenging. But also, you need to find and connect with other women who are excited about possibilities, who aren't shutting down and saying, well, I'm just fine to go. And I mean, don't malign pickleball playing. I love it. But, life can be almost anything you imagine, no matter your age or your stage, but you have to embrace that. And so many of us, I find, even my own friend group, are just fine to coast here on out. And I'm not. And, as our mutual friend Bonnie Marcus, you say, we all have started to say more loudly, I'm not done yet. I've got so much living left to do. And I want to do it in the company of others who are excited about it. I don't want to be, brought down by an energy that's just coasting.
And again, no judgment, because there are people who take great delight, my own mother included, that I don't really remember her leaving Tucson for like 15, 20 years. And she gave her health as the reason why. But I just think she liked staying put. I think that was just her thing. And as
we all have our ways. Yes.
Yeah. And the fact that she admitted to that and owned it and was fine with her local circle, that was powerful, that she was able to cop to that and just live her life on her own terms. So those of us
that's exactly what you're saying, though. We must live our life on our own terms. And sometimes, though, we need others that are like vibing with our path. I think that's really
Or
point, right?
we'll be devil's advocates and have a completely different perspective than we have and not be preachy about it. But that makes us think about some of our decisions or some of our choices and lifestyles as we get older, and some of my podcast guests have really gotten me thinking. There was a guest on who was a gay matchmaker, and she was talking about people over 50 just for the first time in their lives dabbling with relationships with same-sex partners. I'm like, is that something that I want to try? Like, looking at stuff on the menu. Last night I went with a girlfriend to an all-you-could-eat sushi restaurant. I'm like, oh, is that something I would want to try? But there's obviously a big difference between sleeping with another woman and eating red mackerel or whatever it was that I selected.
A little different, yeah.
So apropos of following your own path, going down the route that feels right for you, as the party planner, for lack of a better term, I know that what you're planning is way bigger than a party. Have you encountered some Monday morning quarterbacking of people who haven't offered to help you produce the event, but who say, oh, you should do this or you should do that? And how do you tackle that?
It's a great question. I have not. I have only heard from people, and this is part of the world that I'm excited, or part of the ever expanding group of women and friends that I've become acquainted with more recently, is that there's this collective sense, we use that word again, this collective sense of like, we need this. How can we help? I, of course, get great ideas, but I haven't had criticism. It will be interesting. This is the first of what will be an annual gathering for women over 50. I hope to learn. I hope to learn and expand and change in ways that respond to what people really want or what women really want. So I'm wide open. I
think something you did that was actually very smart in planning this event, and in a few minutes you'll be able to tell our listeners and our viewers what this event is the fact that it's only 100 people. I think that's a very wise move, because I think curated events that are very specific, you get the people there who really want to be there. And,
absolutely.
SOS does these events called Table for Six. And I've done events with 8 people, with 12 people, and they just lose the whole gestalt of the event changes. One of my favorite words is gestalt. So you have to, when you're planning a gathering, no matter what the gathering is, I always begin at the end. And I say, and you hit on that when you said, you want to be surprised and learn things and create experiences. I used to draw stick figures with thought bubbles over their head when I was doing big events. And I'd say, what is it that you want the person to think as they're putting their coat on at the end of the evening?
Oh, that's
so fabulous. Begin at the end. When you see people walking out of a concert, you want them singing the songs. Exactly. Buying the merch, drinking the proverbial Kool-Aid, not that kind of Kool-Aid, but like really becoming a higher level of believer than they were when they walked in, as opposed to saying, glad that's over. Don't ever want to go to one of those again.
Well, absolutely. And I historically, the Third Act Quest and my 333 collective, we've run smaller gatherings. We did a Camino de Santiago walk with 16 women. I have retreats for 15 women. This is different because, and you're saying start with the end in mind. That is what came into my head. I said, I want to surprise, connect, inspire women, but I don't just want to get them excited to come, have them signed up and come. I want them to begin this continuum of excitement and connection, or maybe unearthing some stuff, maybe opening up some stuff that will surprise them. The things we're going to do, and you're one of our amazing speakers, but one of the things, I haven't even told you all the things we're going to do, because you're going to leave connected with yourself more deeply, connected with God knows how many other people. You might meet them in a workshop or you might meet them on the way to the bathroom, but you're going to feel some new energy and excitement. But you will leave probably for the first time in a while because you work so hard. You're going to leave refreshed and you focused on your own life for a couple of days, and you're going to leave energized. And my hope is that that energy sustains you to take steps that you decide you're going to take while you're there.
Cool. Just don't make me skydive.
Damn.
I could potentially bungee
I'll take
jump.
that off the list.
I zip line. That's acceptable. And no skydiving, no deep sea diving, and no dodgeball, please. I will have triggers and flashback
God, I hate
moments.
dodgeball.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a violent
First
game.
grade, right in the face. Right.
Oh, and I remember going on a corporate retreat back in my big shoulder pad days where we did like a team outing. Remember those when they would get a group of people together who fundamentally couldn't stand each other and say, okay, now we're going to do games and things to play nice. And I ended up playing volleyball with the head of my department who was screaming at me, aiming the ball at my head. It was like being back in 6th grade gym class as a chubby weirdo. It was not a good experience. So we've all had those, but your event will not be that. So tell our listener and viewer audience what the name of the event is and just some of the highlights of what we're going to be doing there, because that's super exciting.
Love to. So the name of it is Quest. And it's an annual gathering and celebration for women 50 and older. And when I say 50 and older, I mean 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. We actually have one panel of intergenerational pairs of women. One is in her 80s, one is in her 50s, to talk about how the magic happens when we don't, as you say, claim just to hang out with people our own age, but people that are in our stage. So a woman in her 80s can be the same stage you are in your 50s, kind of a thing. We are going to have a couple of panels. You're on a panel about rewriting, you're not on a panel about rewriting. You're on a panel about rewriting yourself as a beezer, not a geezer. You are one of 24 amazing humans who said yes to coming in this collective gathering. We're going to dance together. We're going to, I can't tell you all the surprises.
No, I don't want to know all the surprises. That's totally fine. That is also part of the power of gatherings, is that you walk in, you know where you're going. You may have some idea of who else is going, and that's been kind of we lost you for a minute.
Sorry.
That's been the buzz around this event, because I know some of the other women who are going, and we've all been talking amongst ourselves saying, are you going? Why are you going? Why can't you go? You're thinking about going, you should go. So even before the event, and it's not happening until May, there's already this buzz starting and the FOMO. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this episode, so that we could pregame a little bit and hopefully get some people who may be looking for something like this. And again, not every event is for everyone. And I've discovered that through my SOS events, that we did an event once about body image. And there were a couple of women in the group, again, no judgment, who kept their clothes on during the event. And we were at a swimming pool, and some of us were like wearing practically nothing, which is a very ballsy thing to do if you're over 60. But, there were some women who just were more modest, and I'm sure they got something out of it too. And again, back to what we were talking about earlier, sometimes the observers who show up at a place and don't participate, they need to be embraced as much as the people who are leading workshops and talking and participating, because they may just be feeding off of the energy in a different way.
Yeah, I zapped off my screen right in the midst of something. So I did want to mention something that's probably the most meaningful thing, is actually exactly what you said. Yeah, there's going to be a little of me pushing people, not pushing, but nudging people a little bit out of their comfort zones by the things we might do. but also by the thinking and the deeper thinking that a lot of people aren't used to giving themselves the time to do. And, one of the themes of this is about unleashing your dreams. And I like to say, especially the wildest ones. I really, because of my own history and my own ahas of life, like many of us, have this feeling like, hey, what the hell are you waiting for? We have got this one life, well, at least this one, this precious and wild life that we can have. We just can't hold back. So that's going to push a few of the people out of their comfort zone. But I promise that they'll all leave a little cracked open, even if they thought they were open before.
And I think it's especially relevant for our generation. And we talk about this all the time, that in our 20s, we were programmed to think about our careers and potentially find a partner. And then in our 30s, we were told that if we didn't have a baby, we might miss the window. And then in our 40s, for most of us, not all of us, if we had kids, we were getting them ready to go off to college. And then in our 50s, 40s, 50s, maybe we started evaluating what we were doing for a living and saying, well, I really didn't like working in financial services. And I really didn't like wearing that suit with the big shoulder pads and the nude pantyhose. And my kids are grown up and they're leaving the house. So what is it that I want for myself right now?
Absolutely.
And, one of the things that I've discovered over the past couple of years since my mom died is that I really still do love to work. I love to write. I like the sense of community that my work gives me. I like making money. I've always liked making money. I sold potholders door to door when I was 10 years old. So that's in my DNA. My brothers and I built a stand on the street corner that it was the original Target. We sold lemonade, used comic books, and my potholders. So it was like the first variety store back in the 1960s. And I was probably like the Miss Bossy Pants that I was a store manager, put my brothers to work. I
can see that.
But when I look back at who I was as a little kid, even though I was really, really shy and kind of the behind the scenes person, a lot of those attributes live on into who I am today.
I'm going to interrupt you just quickly to say I have this article I'm writing called Flashback to 5, and it really is about exactly what you said. Is if you let yourself go back there, so many women go, I don't even remember. Yes, you do. She's in there. If you go back there and you remember your little variety store. For me, I remember swinging on the swing set, shrieking, I want to hold your hand, because the Beatles had just come to America on the Ed Sullivan stage. Those are the little triggers of memories of things that really can bubble up again in you that you might have tamped down as you were your corporate exec building life.
Or other people told you to tamp it down. They're like, well, you can't do that. That's, even like having, now with the miracles of modern medicine, people can have babies into their 40s and 50s. But, this
I'm
is
a 41-year-old mama. Yeah.
Good for you. So
can I ask you a question,
sure.
Nancy? I know you're the questioner. If I were to say to you just off the cuff, I want to hear one of your wild dreams. I want to hear your wildest dream for your life. Would something come to mind?
My wildest dream for my life. As of because my wild dream changes depending on where I am
just
in my
right
evolution.
Now. It doesn't have to be the evolution of your business. It doesn't have to be anything. Just like, what is your wildest dreams at this moment? If you could just find it.
If I could wave a magic wand, I would probably be on a beach somewhere in Europe with a guy who I'm like head over heels crazy about, with passion and great food. And I mean, I think about my wild dreams every night before I go to sleep, because I'm a believer in manifestation my book is called Manifestation for Skeptics. But, I have micro mini dreams too. Like I'll say, all right, today I'm going to do 45 minutes on the bike, which I did do this morning. So dreams don't always have to be grandiose. Dreams can sometimes be like little happy moments that make your life better.
Absolutely. I just like to charge myself and others about, I had a conversation with like 10 women one night, and we were talking about, manifesting our dreams or just unearthing them. And one woman said, "Oh my God, I didn't even never know this. One of mine that I just wrote down is I want to go live in another country." She goes, "I never even thought about that, but maybe I did."
Very cool.
Those kind of wildest dreams that, they're there. They're maybe
just right below the surface. I'll definitely be thinking between now and May of some other big exotic dreams. So I just got the 5-minute mark from our producers here at Pod Populi. So for our listening and viewing audience, what is the website that people should go to if they want to sign up for your quest?
Okay. So my www.thirdactquest.com website has a link to Quest 2024. And among other things, if people sign up for the newsletter, they're going to get prompts and more sharing and inspiration around it. And so that's the main spot to go. I will say that, and you've been a member for a while of our 333 Collective, which is really this is almost a version of a coming out party of the 333, because they've known each other for 2 years on Zoom for the most part and are meeting in person. And also, it's giving a taste of what it can be like in 333 to newer women that gather in May. So that's there too. There's a 2-month trial. Just pop in.
Okay, cool. And disclaimer, if you go to the retreat or go to the gathering and live out your wildest dreams, we are not responsible for what your partner, kids, boss might say if you take those dreams into reality. So
I love it.
This has been great, Diana. This is a manifestation of how to progress on your journey toward staying a beezer and not a geezer. Get out of your comfort zone, meet other people, whether you go to this gathering or another gathering or a concert this Saturday night or just a pickleball social. The energy that you get by interacting with other people is part of the secret sauce to remaining a beezer as opposed to becoming a geezer. So please be sure to listen to our episodes on Apple, Spotify, wherever you happen to get your podcasts. We have so many interesting topics. We're up to 20 plus topics. So skim through and pick whatever interests you. And remember to be a beezer and not a geezer. Carry on and peace out.